Good morning, everyone. We are back from recess, yesterday's recess. And yesterday, before we begin today's proceedings, I wanted to state a little bit about what happened yesterday. Yesterday, we had Police Sergeant Flora Uggan, a former personal security detail for Mrs. Diane Tadella Torres in the chamber, and her counsel, Mr. Anthony Uggan. And before we begin today's proceedings, I wanted to reflect what transpired yesterday. Yesterday, we heard directly from Sergeant Flora Uggan that the Department of Public Safety Commissioner Robert Guerrero offered her the assignment to be a PSD for Mrs. Torres. She had taken a total of 3 trips with the Torreses. That's Governor Torres and Mrs. Torres. Sergeant Uggan further testified that as a PSD, she did drive Diane Torres to non-official and non-government functions, such as when Mrs. Diane Torres was invited to weddings. Sergeant Uggan also stated under oath that she would drive Governor Torres's children to and from school with Mrs. Diane Torres using a government-owned vehicle, a Forerunner to be exact. While Sergeant Uggan did not remember if she attended a dinner at that Governor Torres hosted in Stillwater, Montana, Sergeant Uggan did state that she used her earned per diem to pay for all her meals and her lodging expenses. The record reflected yesterday that Governor Torres reimbursed himself on August 29th, 2017, a total of $372.70, which includes a receipt from Stillwater Fish House and Oyster Bar in the amount of $261.50 for what Governor Torres claims was a hosting of PSDs on protection. The receipt indicates a party of 6 people were present. Also, Sergeant Uggan stated that she went with the governor and the first lady to Boise because it was her duty and responsibility to provide security for the first lady. Furthermore, she stated that she could not remember if there were any official meetings or events that happened in Boise during Governor and Mrs. Diane Torres's trips to Boise, Idaho. Officer Uggan also stated that there was no inherent threat when Governor Torres and Mrs. Diane Torres made personal stops in Boise, Idaho. And so she and her supervisor, Officer Joey Cruz, were relieved of their duties during 2 different trips taken with the Tauruses and therefore proceeded to make the return flight to Saipan. We are back, and this morning we have summoned Police Officer Janika Atalik and Mr. William Castro for today's proceedings. At this time, may we ask Ms. Atalik to return on November 30th at 10:30 a.m. To the chamber. I want to indicate and state for the record that Ms. Atalik is not released from the subpoena that was served upon her. And if there are any scheduling conflicts with the officer and the council, on record, Mr. Anthony Uggan, please email or give me a call or the council. Yes, 10:30 on November 30th. Thank you. At this time, I would like to invite Mr. William Castro to the chamber. And please remain standing, sir, to be administered your oath.
Please raise your right hand. Mr. William Mendiola Castro, do you solemnly swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you shall give in the matter at hand shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
A little bit louder for the microphone, please.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Please be seated.
You may be seated, Mr. Castro.
Thank you.
Thank you and good morning. Welcome to your House chamber. I would like to introduce To you, the members of this committee, I am Selena Babauta, the chair for the JGO committee. To my immediate left is the vice chair, Blas Jonathan Attal. And to his left is Representative Edwin Probst. And to his left is Representative Donald Minglonia. To my far right is Representative Richard Lizama. And to my immediate right is Representative Vicente Camacho. And in front of me are the staff of the Legislative Bureau assigned to the JGO committee. We have our counsel, Mr. Joe Tyheron, and Mr. Cam Nicholas, the legislative assistant. How are you doing today, Mr. Castro?
I'm good, Madam Chair. Thank you. Wish we could have met under different circumstances, but other than that, I'm fine. Thank you.
And also, we have Representative Tina Sablon virtually. She is in quarantine and she is in the CNMI. The agenda for today's meeting was published on November 12th, and we have a quorum established. Therefore, this meeting will commence. It is now 10:55 a.m. And at this time, I would like to recognize, we will go right into it, Mr. Castro, in the interest of time. I would like to recognize Representative Donald Minglonia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Mr. Castro.
Afidi.
Thank you for coming in this morning. Just to start off, can you please state your full name for the record?
Sure. My full name is William Mendiola Castro.
And Mr. Castro, what years did you serve as the senator on Guam?
Oh boy. I would have to, let's say 2016 to 2020.
And if you mind sharing with the committee, what was your position before becoming a senator on Guam?
I was a cabinet official for the Honorable Eddie Bazacalvo and a senior advisor as well to the management team of that administration.
Thank you for that. I just want to turn your attention to your role in the Marianas Working Group. Are you familiar with the Marianas Working Group collaboration?
Yes,
And can you please explain what that is?
sure. If I may, Madam Chair, just with all due respect, the order of subpoena is relative to certain receipts and certain claims for reimbursements, but I will be more than happy to oblige to answer the question outside of these receipts. The Marianas Working Group is essentially a policy framework established between the two jurisdictions, them being the CNMI and Guam. At its most basic element, the Marianas Working Group is designed to address those issues of mutual concern and benefit. There was an executive meeting on Guam and a conference subsequent thereafter. Well, technically, it was a business meeting. And from there, we established 7 working groups made up of representatives of the House and the Senate and of both administrations.
Thank you. And yes, I agree, the subpoena was related to your position as a former senator. And did you not establish or was part of that working group as a senator? Just talking about your comments to the scope of the subpoena.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Proceed, please, Representative Manglona.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Castro. Do you know when this working group was initiated and how it came to be?
Sure. I may be off a year, but I suspect it was around 2017. I would have to say it was conceptualized with the late Representative Ivan Blanco and myself in our capacities as members of the cabinet of our respective administrations. Madam Chair, may I remove my mask?
Yes, I'm sorry. Please feel free. And also, just to let you know, if you feel you need to take a break at any time, just let us know.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I can breathe. I would like to extend the credit as well to Representative Probst, who had an early role in its formulation. It was crystallized, if you will, through a memorandum of agreement between the respective chief executives of the two jurisdictions, gosh, I'm sorry, I can't give you an exact date, but I would suspect it's around December of the same year. So what had happened is we've been operating along this conceptual framework without an established document. Of course, it's uh, non-binding. It was a memorandum of agreement that they had signed, the governors, Governor Torres and Governor Calvo. That was when it became formalized or crystallized, if you will. Through this mechanism, we were able to meet and send invitations among and between our respective Senate and representative offices so that we can do good work in a number of policy areas. Feel free to ask any follow-up questions if I was vague.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And did you have a particular role other than being one of the pioneers for starting this
Wow,
group?
thank you. I think you gave me way too much credit. I guess the role would be as a proactive facilitator. I mean, I didn't have an exact title. I was a Guam senator, as was Edwin Probst, a representative of the legislature. And so we were, if I had to classify it, we were co-equal in our ways in seeking out our mutual interests.
And I'm not sure how big this group is, but can you share who was part of this working group?
Sure. I don't think, as a matter of fact, there isn't an established roster. The group belongs to the people. Um, I hate for that to come off cliche, but really any member of the House or the Senate was invited. And often we had people sort of drop in, if you will, both Democrats, Republicans, and I guess in the CNMI's case, independents, also members of the administration. So it was pretty wide open to those who were invited and had the opportunity to participate in a variety of meetings. We had a number of meetings back home and here that were in our respective offices or on occasion, outside of our offices.
All right. And you mentioned you had several meetings. Do you know how they were scheduled, or was there any program for these meetings, or official invitations to when these meetings were scheduled?
Sure, absolutely. Forgive me, I wasn't prepared for the Marianas Working Group questions, but I'm pulling to the best of my ability from my recollection, being that I was intimately involved. Usually it would be precipitated by a letter that I would furnish to one or more members of this body and or the administration. And it's not as easy as it sounds. I would reach out, for example, to Representative Probst and say, Congressman, are you available on this day? We'd like to talk about free trade. And when there was consensus with one or more members from our respective jurisdictions, we would meet and have these discussions. And yes, although I'm sure in my great imperfection, I didn't always have an agenda, but at least we had several topics that wasn't likely that we would be remiss in not articulating our agenda. For example, we met with, I believe, members of the FBI, Navy Intelligence Corps to talk about high-speed telecommunication conduits throughout the Northern Marianas and Guam, and opportunities to take full advantage of that. At the table at the time was former Representative Marco Peter, and one of those conversations is involved in that was the former Speaker, Mr. Actal, actually right in here in one of your conference rooms. And so there's at least 24 meetings as such. And I can't recall from memory every date and every topic discussed, but I'm sure my former colleagues here would be happy to speak to that.
All right, and thank you for that. And did you always attend these meetings whenever they're scheduled?
Ooh, that's it. I got to remember I'm in an investigative committee,
But you
so I'll try
attend
not to respond
pretty
with
much.
with
Okay.
a tongue-in-cheek answer.
All right.
I would have liked to think so, but not to be again coy or to avoid the question. I don't know. I went to every meeting that I was physically at, so I don't know if the former speaker had his own meeting and my former colleagues met on this side. That would be appropriate, actually, that they conduct business on their own accord. I mean, that's sort of how we get business done, even in bodies such as this, in subcommittees or in organizations where have these discussions where no decisions are made, through which you can proffer an item for adoption or further discussion at the formal level.
Did Governor Calvo always attend these meetings as well?
Uh, Not to the best of my knowledge. I know he attended uh, to the best of my knowledge, the two of the larger meetings when the two chief executives would attend. But I don't have the minutes of those meetings, and no, the short answer is I don't know. I don't know.
What about Governor Ralph Torres?
Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, I have there's curated material open and available on the web, where he delivered opening remarks right here in the Sinamay, and extended a warm welcome to my colleagues from Guam when they came over. I think there were 2 or 3 dozen professionals that came out to participate.
Right. But he also attended, sorry, you mentioned Governor Torres gave addresses here in the CNMI, but he's also attended meetings on Guam.
Multiple meetings. If I could just state for the record, the first meeting I was referring to, I think is we can safely classify as an official business meeting in a conference hall. There were other meetings on Guam and other meetings here at which he was present. Yes.
Based on your recollection, did the First Lady Diane Torres attend any of the meetings in the working group when you were a senator?
I would see her often, Congressman, but I can't remember if she was like on the panel. But I'm pretty sure she had a presence. She was also part of the welcoming team almost every time, and I appreciated that.
All right. And based on your recollection, do you recall if the First Lady of Guam attended these meetings as well?
I don't recall her being here in the CNMI with us, but I recall her being at other functions that Governor Calvo would set into place.
All right. And based on your recollection, do you recall if there was any meeting in of the Marianas Working Group on or about April 20 to 22nd of 2018?
I'm smiling because that is 3 years ago for the record. So April, I can't recall. If I had more
Fair
time,
enough.
I'm sure
Yeah.
I could pull up the records.
Thank you, Mr. Castro.
Sorry for that,
That's
Congressman.
fine.
Excuse me, can I ask,
Sure.
excuse me, Representative Mongolia, I have some clarifying questions. You mentioned that there was an initial meeting. Do you recall when or where that was held?
So just to be clear, there were at least 3 dozen meetings, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, come again?
There were at least 3 dozen.
3 dozen meetings.
Yes, and so when I refer to a first meeting, I would like to submit for the record that this first larger meeting, where there was maybe a organization of 15 or more people, was a business meeting on Guam. I can't recall the month, ma'am. And then there was a larger business meeting here that was at one of the hotels. And so I would submit that was a second larger meeting.
Okay.
But yes, I mean, there were at least 3 dozen in a 3-year period. Oh,
And you mentioned a welcoming committee that Mrs. Diane Torres was a part of. Do you recall who other people or individuals were members of that welcoming committee?
no, and please let me clarify. I don't mean to suggest that as I was deboarding the plane, there was a wonderful welcoming group. I didn't mean to imply that. To be clear, whenever our delegation would arrive on site at an event, 9 times out of 10 she would be on the side of the governor to extend her hand and appreciation for our participation. So for the record, that was my sentiment.
Okay.
Sa tanan sen klaro, no?
You said 9 times out of 10, Mrs. Torres would be present, contributing to this meeting. Do you recall? So there were at least 3 dozen meetings, and we would presume, based on your statements, that maybe about a couple dozen times she would be there, at least.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. You still have the floor, Representative Mongolia.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for clarifying the Marianas Working Group. I just want to turn your attention to one of the travel records, and Cam, can I get you to pull up TA number 335575? Does the chair need to enter it? Are you going to enter it as a after?
Okay, for the record, we are entering exhibit number 88, a TA for Governor Torres, taken on November 11th and 12th, 2017, TA number 335575. You may proceed, Representative Manglonia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Castro, do you have this DA in front of you?
Yes, sir.
Um, For the record, TA 335575, according to these travel records, Governor Torres booked a one-way ticket to Guam to meet with Senator William Castro and Governor Eddie Calvo from November 11th to the 12th, 2017, and then took a boat back to Saipan. A handwritten note in the travel voucher indicates Governor Torres took a Department of Public Safety boat to make the return trip. However, there is no trip report. Mr. Castro, do you meet with Governor Torres from November 11th to the 12th, 2017?
I can't recall the exact date, Congressman, but I can say from my recollection and my earlier testimony that I believe the 2017 timeframe is about right. We were hot and heavy, if you will, on putting this together. As to the exact date, I'm sorry, I can't recall.
All right, so you wouldn't know if there was any official invitation around that time inviting Governor Torres over?
Not from my memory, but if I had known I would be asked about this, I certainly could look through my records. It wouldn't be too hard to do, sir.
Sure. This meeting would have occurred over Veterans Day back in 2017 and over the weekend from Saturday to Sunday. Does that help you recall that event?
You're asking me if it helps that it happened on a weekend or November.
And it was around the Veterans Day weekend.
That particular reference doesn't help me, but what I can submit is that we meet often, and it's not just with the governor. We do meet on weekends. We meet whenever your travel schedule will permit. But this is not extended just to the governor. This courtesy schedule arrangement extended also to my colleagues in the House and the Senate, as well as the colleagues on Guam. Many of our colleagues who former colleagues who reside on Guam weren't always available. And so um, it wouldn't be an exception to meet on a weekend. If the governor in his state capacity was to attend an event on Guam for other business, I would have appreciated a little of his time to push forward the issues before the working group. Yes.
And even on holidays, any holidays for that matter.
Congressman, as you know, in our line of work, you're going to do it whenever it's possible to do it, sir. So the short answer would be yes.
All right, thank you. And did you remember going to any Veterans Day events on Guam? That year?
Gosh, if people from Guam are watching, I like to think I went to every single one, Congressman, but I don't recall. If I went to the 2017 one, sir, is your specific. So to restate your question, if I'm hearing you clearly, you're asking me for the record if I recall having attended a November 11th Veterans Day ceremony on Guam.
Yes.
I don't know. I would think so. I probably think I was using a Harley jacket for the record, but I would submit that I probably attended one. And it would depend, Congressman, which event, because there's several Veterans Day events that occur south of the Sinamay.
Right. And would you happen to remember if Governor Torres physically accompanied you to any of these Veterans Day events?
It would have been my privilege, but I don't know. I cannot recall.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Castro. And at this time, Madam Chair, I yield.
Thank you, Representative Manglonia. Okay. We will proceed. At this time, I'd like to recognize Representative Richard Lizama.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, Mr. Castro.
Hafidi.
Welcome to Saipan.
So just want to say,
Welcome to our chamber, your chamber. We'll look at Exhibit 80. Yes.
I'm sorry, dispense that, Congressman. Were you waiting for me to acknowledge?
Yes.
Yes, sir, I have it.
You ready? I mean,
I'm gonna try my best. I mean,
Okay,
it's several pages, but
thank you.
go ahead.
Okay, based on that exhibit, sir, reimbursement request memo dated November 28, 2017, with Home Depot receipt. The items were with Eric Card, wheelbarrow, Maddox, etc., dated November 11, 2017. Governor Torres claimed reimbursement for 8,000, $817.23 worth of yard equipment and supplies such as chainsaw, wheelbarrow, and Maddox purchased at Home Depot in Guam over the same Veterans Day weekend. On Veterans Day, according to the receipt, according to early testimonies received by the ZGO, none of the items listed in the Home Depot receipt made it into the inventory of the office of the governor, although they are claimed as office operations in the reimbursement request. Mr. Castro, did you go to Home Depot with Governor Torres on November 11, 2017?
I don't recall, Congressman. I'm pretty sure I would have recalled that, but dispense that.
Hmm.
If I may ask, is my name anywhere associated with this particular receipt?
No,
Okay, so you're asking me if I was present with the governor when it is, when it's
that was,
evidenced here that he may have been at Home
that was
Depot?
during the Veterans Day, and I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I find it highly unlikely that I would have been at Home Depot, sir, if I was at a Veterans Day ceremony. So,
Okay.
short answer would be no. I don't recall.
So are you aware of anyone else going to Home Depot on that day, either with Governor Torres or on his behalf to make these purchases? Are you aware of anyone like that? No.
No,
Did you join Governor Torres on the return boat back to Saipan?
no.
So let's move on to Exhibit 89.
Entering for the record, Exhibit 89, TA number 337050. TA travel documents for Governor Torres with travel performed from January 9th to the 10th, 2018. You may proceed, Representative Lizama.
Thank you. So the exhibit that you are looking at, sir, submit for the record travel documents pertaining to the trip Governor Torres took to Guam from January 9 to the 10, 2018. The purpose of this trip, according to the governor's TA, was to meet with Senator William Castro to discuss critical economic issues pertaining to both the cinema and Guam and to foster a closer collaboration to address the needs of the Marianas for the long term. There is no trip report, and the governor signed a form indicating he lost all boarding passes to and from Saipan. Mr. Castro, did you meet Governor Torres on January 9 to the 10, 2018 in Guam?
To the best of my recollection, Congressman, um, I don't know, but between the fall of 2017, perhaps through 2020, there was a lot of activity. Particularly, if I could, again, if I could just emphasize between the fall of 2017 through, gosh, before the super typhoon hit, the governor and other members of the CNMI legislature and executive branch would make frequent trips to Guam. I mean, not all of them at the same time. So this is very likely that he would have come to Guam. And again, I wish I had better opportunity to research my records. Uh, I I don't recall, sir.
If a meeting did occur between you and Governor Torres on January 9th to the 10th on 2018, would you have produced an agenda or a program for that meeting?
Yes, ma'am. It's highly likely that I would have sent an email or produced a document or written something down to record our thoughts and conversations, which is pretty standard at the time because I would take that same information and parlay that back to my colleagues on both sides of the river, so to speak.
Would you say of the 3 dozen meetings or so,
Yes, ma'am.
we don't know an exact amount, and that's okay. Would you say that most of them had an agenda or an invite or a program of some sort?
I would say that most of those meetings where there were parties outside the legislative bodies, and that's because we would involve officials from other agencies, both local and federal, and it would necessitate a specific agenda in order to derive a specific outcome. So yes, again, for those meetings that had folks who are not necessarily part of the legislative bodies, we would have some kind of consensus on an agenda that would touch on our mutual interests. But there were many times where my colleagues would come out and we would take a moment to sit down and discuss things. And we would usually pivot off of the 7 major topics that we established early on since the first meeting. And any one of those 7 topics I can probably recall from memory and probably identify the congresspersons who would chair or champion a particular topic within those areas.
Thank you. At a later time, would you be willing to submit an affidavit as to the meetings after you've done your research, meetings about the working group collaboration? Would you be willing to do that?
Sure. And if I would request that did not have to command me to attend, I'd be more than happy to participate in a more collaborative way. This is a interesting environment by which we exchange information. Typically, my colleagues could supply the same information. The short answer, Madam Chair, is yes, if I have
Thank you.
sufficient time.
This committee would appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
Another question, is the working group collaboration still an active group?
I would say there are still active conversations, ma'am. It would really be wonderful if it can take the level of formality that it did before. I have discussed this with the governor in my capacity as chief of staff, and I've had conversations with members of both the Guam legislature and this legislature and the governor's office on Guam to, if I may submit, reauthorize the working group. It would be a wonderful collaboration. So if there are conversations at the formal level above my pay grade, I wouldn't know yet. But there are conversations at a very informal level as recent as yesterday and the day before.
Okay, thank you.
You're
You may
welcome, ma'am.
proceed, Representative Lazama, if you have further questions.
Hugh, ma'am, thank you.
Thank you. Moving right along, I would like to recognize Representative Vicente Camacho at this time.
All right, thank you, Chair, and welcome, Mr. Castro.
Buenos dias, Sergeant.
Good to see you again.
Thank you for Sarge.
If you would, please, the exhibit 339797, and that's there you go, it's got one.
Let the record reflect that Representative Vicente Camacho is entering TA number 339797 for the record. And it is a TA which Governor Torres and First Lady Diane Torres took from Saipan to Guam on April 20th to the 22nd, 2018. You may proceed, Representative Camacho.
Thank you. You ready, Mr. Castro?
Yes,
All
sir.
right,
Yes,
And
sir,
it is entered as Exhibit 90.
Exhibit 90. Submit for the record travel documents pertaining to a trip Governor Torres and First Lady Diane Torres took from Saipan to Guam from April 20 to 22nd, 2018. The purpose of the travel, according to Governor Torres' TA, was to meet with Governor Caldwell and various senators of Guam to continue on the Marianas Working Group collaboration. As with most of the governor's travel records, there is no trip report, and in this case, there is no official program, invitation, agenda provided with the records. The Commonwealth government paid for the airfare of the governor and his wife, as well as provided a stipend and lodging to the governor. The record also indicate that the couple were accompanied by a personal security detail. Mr. Castro, did you attend this meeting of the Marianas Working Group from April 20 to the 22nd, 2018?
Excuse me, I can't recall, First Sergeant, Congressman. But again, it's consistent in that it falls within the same window when we had formally established the working group, if I have my dates right.
Thank you for that. What was the specific purpose of this meeting, if you know?
I don't know, sir.
Yeah, gotcha. I'll throw this one at you. Was there an invitation?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Was there an invitation for this meeting?
I'm not aware, sir.
All right,
I cannot recall.
gotcha. Would there have been a program or agenda for this meeting?
I would suspect so. And yes, I'm willing to go back on my records and see if one was furnished.
Okay, great, because I was going to ask you if you could provide that or
Sure.
find that for us. Thank you. Did First Lady Diane Torres attend these meetings of the Marianas Working Group? You know,
I cannot recall, sir.
okay. And what role did she play, if any, in these meetings? I know you just told me that you don't know, but
I can't recall the April meeting, Congressman, but I can recall other meetings where she would provide some input on some topics, but I'd have to go back on my records, Congressman.
all right, thank you. Next exhibit, please.
At this time, Representative Vicente Camacho is entering for the record exhibit number 91. Is that correct? TA number 337522. It is a travel documents for Governor Torres made in connection with the Marianas Working Group, dated February 2nd, 2018. You may proceed.
Thank you. And you are ready? You have the exhibit in front of you?
Yes, sir.
All right. Here's another example of a trip that Governor Torres made in connection with the Marianas Working Group. This time to Tinian on February 2nd, 2018, to meet with resident heads of Tinian departments as part of the Marianas Working Group. Again, there was no trip report in the records and no official program, invitation, or agenda. Mr. Castro, did you attend this meeting of the Marianas Working Group in Tinian on February 2nd, 2018?
First Sergeant, I did not attend the Tinian meeting, but I can tell you from a matter of recollection that if I'm not mistaken, on or around that time, February 2nd was a seminal moment for the Marianas Working Group. A large delegation from Guam, relatively large delegation from Guam, came to participate in bilateral talks on issues ranging across 7 broad areas. As a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, the Honorable Eddie Baza-Calvo himself was here. And if I'm not further mistaken, the governor had accompanied Governor Torres to Tinian. I hope that helps.
Okay, appreciate that.
One moment. So it is your testimony that this meeting did take place in Tinian, and in fact, Governor Eddie Calvo was present and Governor Ralph Torres.
To the best of my recollection, there was a extended trip to Tinian where both governors may have met with local officials. Yes, to the best of my recollection, ma'am.
And it is your testimony that it is somewhat around April of 2018 when the Marianas Working Group was formally established.
I'm
Is that
sorry.
correct?
So just to clarify for the
Oh, I'm
public
sorry.
record, February
February
2nd, 2018 is the date in question.
Yes, that's
And-
correct.
And yes, I stand by my testimony that it was an important time for the Marianas Working Group, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You may proceed, Representative Camacho.
Okay. And what may have been the purpose of this meeting, if you know?
Would you be speaking about the business meeting in the whole thing, or?
Yeah,
Sure.
the purpose of the
Sure,
Marianas
absolutely.
Working
So
Group, yeah.
the Marianas Working Group was hosted by the CNMI government, if I can use that term loosely. The governor hosted us. We had a delegation from Guam, as I stated. It's probably my fourth time, and we were in various working groups, 7 categories ranging from transportation to food security, education, cultural affairs, telecommunications, and so forth. There is an active file live and on the web, probably off of my dormant webpage, that curates some of these discussions, and you will see free flow of ideas among the participants. And so the stated purpose, aside from identifying issues of mutual concern of benefit, was to further articulate plans of action and timelines associated with these concerns and opportunities so that we can move our agenda forward, so that both Guam and the Sinamai may prosper.
Okay, thank you for that.
And there is an official, if my memory serves me correctly, there is an extensive agenda associated with that.
Very good. And who are the Tinian members of the Marianas working group, if you can recall?
I mean, no offense to my friends on Tinian, but I don't want to assume, given this is an investigative committee. Forgive me for not recalling all of their faces and names. I don't know. I like to think Gil Borja was there, the director, but I can't recall. And since I'm under oath, well, then hopefully you don't hold me. I'm held harmless for my lack of clarity. But there was a Tinian delegation. First Sergeant, I just don't know their names or faces at this point in time.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
And I'm still learning now that I'm back.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Would there have been a program or agenda for this meeting?
Sir, are you referring to the?
The Tinian working group.
I don't know. I don't recall.
Okay.
I would assume, if I may submit it, please, you can cut me off. I would have to assume that it's along the same lines because the agenda is consistent throughout the 4 major islands in both jurisdictions.
But we would be able to find this somewhere if we went looking for it, right? All right.
The overarching agenda is available, yes.
Okay. Appreciate that. Thank you for your answers. And I yield for now, Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Castro.
You're welcome, Congressman.
Thank you, Representative Camacho. Specific to the Tinian meeting, would you say the Tinian mayor was a part of that? Since you don't recall anybody from Tinian being a part of that meeting and
The, Madam Chair, the meeting that occurred on Tinian,
that's correct.
I don't recall, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Okay, sorry.
Would you know why it was held in Tinian? Why not Saipan, where there's more resources to support a meeting?
Sure. So the short answer would be no, but if I could just please provide proper context. The Marianas Working Group business meeting occurred on Saipan. As a matter of fact, I don't know, Mr. Speaker, forgive me if the former speaker was present. It would have been proper, it would have been right and proper, in my opinion, to have a series of meetings outside of Saipan, being that the Commonwealth is made up of other islands. It would have been proper for the governor to introduce Governor Calvo to local officials on either Luta or Tinian, given their specific challenges that are, that pertain to their population. So I hope that allows us to understand that the main meeting was here. And so if a Tinian meeting had ensued thereafter, it would have been right and proper.
Thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome, ma'am.
We will move along. At this time, I would like to recognize Representative Donald Minglonia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Castro, I just have a few questions regarding a particular trip. And Cam, can I get you to bring up TA 345738?
At this time, Representative Donald Minglonia is introducing TA number 345738 as exhibit number 92. It is a TA for Governor Torres, who traveled to Guam with his spouse, Mrs. Diane Torres, on November 17th to the 19th, 2018. You may proceed, Representative Manglonia.
Mr. Castro, do you need a minute, about a minute to look at these documents? Or?
No,
You're
you may
good.
proceed.
All right.
Thank you, Representative.
This particular travel voucher indicated that the government had paid for Mrs. Torres's airfare to Guam around November 17th to the 19th, 2018. The purpose of this meeting, according to the TA, was to meet with Governor Eddie Calvo and Senator William Castro regarding Marianas Trade and Economic Development Council. There is no trip report, but there is an invitation from you at the time, Senator Castro, to Governor Torres dated October 18th, 2018, to meet with himself, Governor Calvo, and other members of the Guam legislature regarding continued collaboration toward a One Marianas free trade zone, food security, and bilateral agreement. Mr. Castro, did you meet with Governor Torres on November 17th to the 19th, 2018?
Thank you, Representative. I don't recall from memory, but again, if the letter was submitted, what was the date of the letter? October?
October 17th, 2018. The invitation was on October, and then the event was on around November 17th.
All right, on. You actually have the letter. That's appreciated. Can you scroll down further? Do I get to do that? Oh, is it here?
Yeah, you have the hard copy.
I'm sorry. Okay. Well, the TA served me no purpose, so forgive me. I didn't go through the entire packet. Oh, here you go. Okay. I just wanted to establish that, in fact, that is my signature, and that is my style of writing. And yes, then that being said, I attest to the letter as being legitimate, and therefore the standing invitation also subsequent to as being a legitimate invitation. I just can't recall from memory, Representative Manglotnia, if in fact we had met on that particular date, but I have no reason to believe otherwise.
All right. So you wouldn't happen to know if, other than this particular meeting, that whether there has been other meetings scheduled for that duration of the trip?
It's likely, Congressman. Again, I didn't do the chronology, but let me tell you how this typically works. And I would extend an invitation. I didn't have direct access to the governor as frequent as I would my colleagues, and so I would issue a letter in good faith, extending the opportunity for us to dialogue. And of course, it would be subject to his availability. So in this particular case, not having all the facts in front of me, I would have to assume that this was a standing invitation for which they could have made manifest on or around the date in question here, which would be November 19th. So that, in some instances, sir, that's usually how this works. In other instances, I'd pick up the phone or send a WhatsApp text to Representative Probst, the Speaker, or other members of your body, and they could make it in 48 hours notice, and then we'd prepare an agenda. So I do not recall the November 18th, 2018 meeting, but I would submit for the record that I would have to submit that there was a meeting based on this invitation, sir.
All right. Thank you. So maybe it would help to try to recall whether there was a meeting that you scheduled based on this letter where maybe even the First Lady was in attendance.
It could be possible. It could be possible that the governor only had a 90-minute window outside of whatever he had scheduled for the day. And it's also possible, and has happened in the past, where the First Lady would be present, whether it was over a meal or whether he was cutting between meetings. If he was, for example, I'm not submitting this for the record because I can't recall, if he was meeting with Governor Calvo but was gracious enough to extend 15 to 35 minutes to discuss these specific topics. And I think I'm happy to share that at least there were 3 specific topics and that were being addressed by Governor Torres himself and Governor Calvo, because of particular interest to me is the trade zone issue, which required him. I can't recall the date, but I believe we even took a site tour to a proposed extension of our ports that may not fly, but at least in their minds would be an extension of your port, thereby extending the Jones Act exemption to Guam, at least upon point of entry. So I cannot recall the 11/18/2018 actual meeting.
Thank you. Just give me 1 minute. Can we just recess for just about 1 minute, Madam Chair?
Actually, we can take I'll say a 5-minute recess.
Thank you.
Short recess. Ready? Dan? Are you ready, Joe? What? No? Jeez. Welcome back. We are back from our recess, and prior to the recess, Representative Donald Manglonia had the floor and had asked the witness this morning, former Senator Will Castro, if First Lady Diane Torres attended any of the meetings that was scheduled between November 17th to the 19th of 2018. And for the record, the witness stated that he does not recall. Is that correct?
That is, ma'am.
Thank you. At this time, we will move on and recognize Representative Tina Sablon.
Morning, colleagues. Good morning, Mr. Castro. Welcome to the House Chamber, and thank you for your presence today. Can we just do a quick sound check? Can you all hear me okay?
Check. I hear you loud and clear, ma'am.
Okay, great. So, Mr. Castro, as you know, as has already been revealed in some of the exhibits today, your name does appear in a number of Governor Torres's public expenditures, including some of his justifications for travel to and from Guam and certain reimbursements. And unfortunately, the governor did not provide any trip reports as part of the documentation that this committee has received and reviewed. And so we appreciate your willingness to provide more detailed information as to the working group meetings that we have inquired about today. And just for the record, can I just verify that when you go back through your notes and your own files, your records include working group meeting minutes, official invitations, agendas if they existed, as well as documentation of the meeting attendees and meeting dates and locations. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. As a matter of fact, if I could add to that, I was able to secure, thankfully, it's lying around in the back of the hall here, a prior document, and I hope it would serve your purpose, Congressman Manglonia, as well as the members of the House here who asked me specific dates, and that this calendar was provided early on. I'm not even sure when I printed this piece. But it lists a pretty explicit series of events ranging from December 18, 2017 to as far forward as May 14, 2019. I don't doubt, Representative Sablan, that I'll be able to reach in. This is a new laptop that I brought, but I hopefully still have some of the good stuff if I did the iCloud thing right. Some of the artifacts, if you will, that would validate more than a sufficient number to help me with my memory. But
Sure,
if I may submit this for
that
the
would be
record,
helpful.
yeah, this is
and appreciated for this committee. So thank you for that. So I'll move on to one specific reimbursement. And this is already part of the record, the committee's record, exhibit number 20, Governor's Reimbursement Request Memo dated January 30th, 2019. Madam Chair, could we just confirm that exhibit is up on the screen and available for the witness and our colleagues to review?
Yes, Representative Sablon, the witness is in possession of exhibit number 20 previously entered, and it is the request for reimbursement by Governor Torres dated January 30th, 2019.
Okay, great. So this reimbursement request from the governor to Finance Secretary Larissa Larson includes a receipt for a bottle of Scotch that Governor Torres purchased in cash at the Tea Galleria store at the Saipan Airport on January 7th, 2019. And according to the reimbursement request memo and the receipt that was attached to that, for that particular expenditure, there are a number of expenditures listed in that memo. The governor justified this purchase as a gift for Guam Senator Will Castro. The value of the bottle, according to the receipt, was $189. So we'll go right into our questions. Mr. Castro, did you receive this gift of Scotch from Governor Torres?
good morning, Representative Sablan. Sejus masiput estino ocho na apuna dat nabe na kloro estino receipt. I really appreciate the opportunity to come before this body and be provided the appropriate forum to adequately address this. The short answer would be yes. Yes, an appreciation barbecue. Madam Chair, if I may, I have a short statement in this regard. Would this be the appropriate time?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Let the record reflect my statement. Yes, an appreciation barbecue was held at my personal residence on a weekend in the evening, sometime in the spring of 2019. It was probably closer to the end of January or the first week of February. I had the privilege to provide an email statement to Representative Sablan in July of 2020, but my recollection was that it was around late January. I think it's closer to the first week of February, same time frame. The purpose of the gathering was to thank all those on Guam who donated thousands of items to assist our CNMI familia in their recovery from Super Typhoon Yutu. As is custom in my family and for most Chamorro families, as well as Pacific Islanders, our cultures, it's customary to bring something to a gathering. In this case, at this appreciation barbecue, food and drink. And with that said, I will attest and affirm that yes, Governor Ralph De Leandro Torres was gracious enough to make an appearance, and he did make a donation connected to this event. His donation, however, it's important to note, was placed on a table in the open, as were other foods and drinks. And while the event was hosted at my private residence using private funds and not in my official capacity as a senator at the time, I appreciated that the head of state, the governor of the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, was present to convey a few words on behalf of a grateful community. He addressed those present by extending his appreciation for all that was donated to Tinian and Saipan: 50 portable stoves, 100 hammers, 5,000 nails, 250 pillows, 2,000 blankets, sanitary items for women and children, small refrigerators, and maybe close to 80 monitors for CHCC. Please forgive me if some numbers may have been a bit off because it's been a couple years. But the point is that we gave freely in a very big way as part of our love for our Marianas. The first of these items, as Guam and CNMI media reported, were transported on 3 small boats that sailed to Tinian just days after the eye passed through the south side of Saipan and over Tinian. I know this because I was there. It was a 14 to 16-hour boat trip in typhoon condition waters. We have 13 boats committed, but because of the conditions, we were fortunate to have at least 3. The largest of the load came in 2 shipping containers straight to Saipan. We did this at no cost to the people of the Commonwealth, but a great personal risk to life and definitely shared expense. I and countless others will gladly do it again and support our brothers and sisters in the Northern Mariana Islands. And for the record, I have hosted many CNMI residents at my home over the years, albeit as part of a delegation of lawmakers, residents, temporary living on Guam for school or medical referral purposes, visiting cultural artists, musicians, government officials on joint training exercises. And I do this, as some of you have done for me, in goodwill, so that we may further our mutual interests while redressing our mutual concerns for a stronger Marianas. Sidus Masi. Madam Chair and Representative Sablan, I state that for the public record, because while I do attest that a donation was made and it was listed as a gift, let the record reflect that I did not personally enrich myself with this item that was openly contributed and brought to the table where every other item was provided. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Sablan, to follow up, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on this issue.
Thank you, former Senator Will Castro, for that statement. Can we get a copy of it?
Yes, ma'am.
And that statement, read by former Senator William Castro, will be entered as exhibit number 93. Thank you. You may proceed, Representative Sablan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Castro, for that statement explaining the circumstances in which this gift was offered and received. So to clarify then, it is your testimony that event was not an official function, correct?
It is my testimony that the event was not effectuated in my capacity as a senator, but I will submit that the governor made a public appearance on behalf of a grateful community in his official capacity as governor.
Okay, so to be clear, it was not an official function that you hosted in your official capacity. Moving on, so was this classified in any way as an official gift from the CNMI government through Governor Torres to you as a government official of Guam?
No, ma'am, not at the time.
Not at the time, was it classified later?
No, no.
Is
I mean,
that
what I
right?
meant was I'm speaking to a specific frozen moment in time. No, on that evening where he had arrived, he did not say this is a gift from me to you, Senator Castro. I basically showed up and made a contribution to the event.
Okay. And to your knowledge, was your receipt of this gift ever documented with any agency in either Guam or CNMI?
Not aware if it was filed with any agency here. I'm not aware if it was filed on Guam. And no, I did not file it myself.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to move on next to entering exhibits for the record of email correspondence between Senator Castro and myself between June and July 2020. Madam Chair, if I may just confirm that those are also available for the witness and for our colleagues.
That is correct, Representative Sablan, and that will be entered as exhibit number 94. And it is the email communication from you and the reply from Mr. Will Castro. And the witness has the exhibits at this time.
Thank you. May I proceed?
You may.
Thank you. So for background, last year on June 24th, 2020, during the 21st legislative term of the House, I sent then Senator Will Castro an inquiry seeking clarification as to the nature of the gift of Scotch whiskey for which Governor Torres had claimed reimbursement from the government. Senator Castro responded in an email dated July 3rd, 2020, which he has referenced in his statement, that he had hosted a private, non-official social function at his residence on Guam in January of 2019 for volunteers and public officials who had participated in the coordination of donated relief items for Saipan following Super Typhoon U2. And according to that email from Senator Castro, Governor Torres had attended this gathering and contributed something in the form of food or drink. Senator Castro wrote, "Whatever was brought by the governor, I assure you that it was not delivered to me as a personal gift." Senator Castro also said then, as he said today, that all these items have been placed on a table for guests to consume. So Mr. Castro, would you just confirm that this is the email that you submitted to me on July 3rd, 2020?
Yes, ma'am, with the exception that when you were reading it, it was to assist residents of the CNMI and not just Saipan.
Thank you for clarifying that. And you mentioned the general time frame in which you hosted that gathering, but could you just, I guess, clarify for the record or confirm for the record when exactly in January of 2019 did that happen?
Yes, ma'am. Well, I'm going to assume it was closer to February 2nd. So I will, if I could submit, it was the latter part of the week of January. So between January 28th and February 2nd, I'm sure I can go back on my records, whether it's pictures or what have you. It's within that 5-day window, ma'am. So that's the time frame. Again, it would be between, I think, January 28th or 30th through February 2nd or 4th. But it's relatively within that window.
Okay, but you're sure that it was the end of January then?
To the best of my recollection, yes.
Okay, thank you. And so I'd like to just note for the record that the particular purchase for which the governor received reimbursement was made on January 7th, so it's in the first week of the month. And so for the governor to have made that contribution at the end of the month, he would have had to purchase the Scotch whiskey at the airport on his way to Guam on January 7th, carry it with him on his way back to Saipan, and then go back to Guam for another trip to donate that that whiskey to the party. Do you have any context that you could provide for us, Mr. Castro? Was there perhaps some other party, some other gathering that happened in the beginning of January that you attended and may have received this gift?
I'm certain I had several gatherings within the 6-month window, but I'm also certain that I didn't receive 2 bottles of scotch. I think I would have remembered that. Um, so I don't know what other context to provide other than I did on Guam. I just hope I get the dates wrong. I had meetings with 2 congresspersons from here for which Governor Torres was not present. So that couldn't be the one.
Okay.
Yeah. So
but you had multiple gatherings in which Governor Torres was present
No,
during the month of January, or just that one?
Okay, so clarification. Your original question was, do I recall if I've had other parties? But the clarifying question is, for which Governor Torres may have been present. Is that correct?
I'm asking, yes, were there other gatherings in which Governor Torres was present at your residence during the month of January?
I don't recall right now, but this would be the one that I stated for the record, for which there was a appreciation get together.
Okay, thank you. And did you actually see with your own eyes what Governor Torres had contributed to the social gathering, the appreciation gathering that you hosted at the end of January?
To the best of my recollection, I have no reason to doubt that. Yes, there was so much going on. So I don't recall with my own eyes standing up, handshake, gift with a handshake. I don't recall. This is a special investigative committee, and so statements of fact beyond a reasonable doubt should be made. And I unfortunately I can't say I recall with my own eyes.
Okay, and so you don't then also recall Governor Torres actually presenting you with the gift of Scotch whiskey for this appreciation gathering that she did?
I recall there being scotch on the table, more than one, but that's not to say he didn't bring it and place it there himself. I have no reason to doubt otherwise.
Right, but I'm asking if you remember, if you actually saw him bring this to you and present it to you.
I want to say I'm almost 100% certain, ma'am, but uh, so I'm the kind of person that if you ask me if I remember when I met you at this moment in time and we exchanged a handshake with scotch, I can recall that. But right now it's a little vague. So I the short answer is I don't recall the actual visible establishment of the governor handing me a bottle of scotch.
Okay, so you don't actually know for certain what he contributed, if anything, to that appreciation gathering, correct?
No, I know he contributed some things because as the folks were coming in, he wasn't the only one. There were a few people coming in all at the same time. It was stated for, I think, 6 p.m. And I saw him as well as others carrying items in, whether it's beer or food and stuff. So, no, let the record reflect beyond any doubt that the governor had brought items to the event. Yes.
Okay. And would you have kept a record of what people brought for this social gathering?
No.
Okay. Did you at any point pay back either the government of Guam or the government of CNMI for this gift that Governor Torres had claimed for reimbursement?
Did I pay it back?
Yes.
No.
Okay. And then I guess just to wrap up some of these questions, well, first I wanted to thank you, Mr. Castro, for your efforts in providing these relief items to assist the people of the Marianas after Super Typhoon U2. Do you recall how many deliveries of donated items you coordinated as part of this relief effort?
Sure. It couldn't be more. I was personally on that boat, so I can tell you by the minute where we were and what we brought. Yes, and then there was a subsequent delivery, Representative Sablan, via container. I want to say there were 2 containers, 2 separate shipments, but I can say definitively, without any doubt, that there was at least one major drop with a container. I know because I helped load it. I didn't get on the ship and I wasn't here when it came. I wanted to be, but I don't know if they actually separated the load because there's so much stuff. So minimum of 2, ma'am. Minimum of 2.
Okay, I recall that there were multiple deliveries that happened over the course of, I think, that year, right? And do you recall, or is there a record of who the recipients were of these donated relief items?
Okay, I'm sorry. I think first of all, there were multiple deliveries, and I will not claim credit for having put them all together. I believe other organizations also provided relief supplies, so I can claim at least 2, maybe 3. Could you repeat your question, Representative Sablan, about the ledger? I'm sorry, say it again.
Sure. Who were the recipients for these donated relief items?
Oh gosh.
Is there a record for that as well?
The recipients, I don't have a distribution schedule, but I can tell you from my firsthand experience on Tinian when we arrived and what we did, we handed him directly to the mayor. And I know that our team, our logistical team and the mayor's staff and other volunteers transported it to a major warehouse. Um, Beyond that, I don't know which residents received what. I did get some verbal affirmations later that the monitors did make it to CHCC. Other than that, I don't know who got blankets or pillows or things of the like, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And to what extent did you coordinate the distribution with Governor Torres?
Your question, if I heard it correct, to what extent did I coordinate distribution?
The distribution of these relief items, yes.
Insofar as, well, okay, let me try to answer this to the best of my ability. The extent of my coordination with the governor was trying to find a date and time wherein he may receive the items via container so that I would not have to incur the cost of whatever is associated with shipping items to the CNMI, like port fees, wharfage fees. We just didn't have that kind of capital. That was probably the extent, Congresswoman.
Okay.
The governor, to the best of my recollection, was not on Tinian when we had arrived with the 3 boats. My coordination with him was him saying it's okay on these dates. There will be local officials to assist you.
Okay, thank you. And to the best of your recollection, did Governor Torres fly out to Guam or any other islands to meet you to discuss
Yes,
these
ma'am.
efforts?
Yes, ma'am. So that I remember, I remember because the good former speaker was there, as well as I think Representative Castro at the time, and a handful of people, Representative JP Sablan and others, had arrived to survey the equipment and items before they were to be loaded to establish that, in fact, the integrity and the need was there for the Commonwealth to be able to utilize them. If I'm not mistaken, we may or may not have gone into the basement of one of the hotels where those products were stored. But the short answer is yes. The governor was hands-on in coming to make sure that I wasn't, the people who were donating stuff weren't donating like a bunch of used materials that couldn't otherwise be reused or repurposed.
Sure. And do you recall when and where that meeting happened?
Oh man. I think the short answer is yes for maybe one of those meetings, because I remember the picture so vividly. It was quite comical. It's really entertaining when we get the wrong angle to pose for the picture. And so it was at this one hotel in Guam where the general manager came down, the president of the corporation came down. Gosh, I forget the name. Japan Plaza maybe was one of those meetings. And then there was a reception at my place, small dinner either before or after, right when they all got off the plane. Literally, we went to the hotel, and I remember this so vividly because the 2 parties went to 2 different directions, and it was just hilarious. So the point is, Japan Hotel would be one of those meetings. My place would have been one of those other meetings. But there were, I would suspect there were 2 other meetings before or after that date.
Okay. And when would these meetings have been?
Gosh, I can't recall the exact date, ma'am, but I'm sure when I go back, I can pull it up. It had to have been prior to the actual shipment. And I don't even, it had to be prior to the shipment date. And I don't remember when the shipment date was, but it could have been anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks after the initial visit to Tinian, if my memory serves me correctly. So I can't recall the exact date, Congresswoman, but I'm certain I can go back even in the media and find out when that happened.
Mhm. Okay, so but just to clarify, that small dinner that you mentioned hosting at your place, was that the same appreciation gathering that you hosted at the end of the month at your place in January of 20, what year was that? 2019.
It could be, but I don't think so. And I only say that because the Tinian trip occurred the Saturday, Sunday before Super Monday, which was our elections. So that's November of 2018. And then this appreciation, I went on the record to say, was February 2nd. So that would put December, January, February. There was a subsequent shipment. So it's possible that there was another meeting before that. It's very possible. I just don't have the details, ma'am. It's very possible.
Okay. Thank you. I yield at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Sablan. And last exhibit, Mr. Castro. I will enter exhibit TA number 347794 as exhibit number 94. Is that correct? 95. And this is travel documents for Governor Torres, who claimed he traveled to Guam and Ponape from January 31st to February 3rd, 2019. And the governor stated the purpose of his trip was to meet with Senator William Castro in regards to the donations made to the Commonwealth Health Corporation and to the public school system from Guam. And to meet with Peter Christian, the president of the Federated States of Micronesia, on employment opportunities. Governor Torres did not submit any trip report for this travel, and there are no supporting documentations either for these meetings with yourself and with the president of the FSM. Mr. Castro, did you meet with Governor Torres at any time during this trip?
I believe so, Madam Chair. Just recalling from my notes, I'm trying to put these years together, and looking at the date of this TA, I'm suspecting, forgive me, because I didn't have much time to review it, but if it's around January 28th, yes, it's possible that I could have met with him before that, and even before the actual reception that I had stated for the record. I am showing, based on my notes, which is sloppy, I'm sorry, again, I didn't have an opportunity to put it all together, that after the body's inauguration on or around the second week of January, I had at my residence that between the 19th and the 21st and 31st have hosted CNMI representatives or residents at my house. I would suspect that the governor was there, ma'am.
But you cannot ascertain for
Yeah,
the, for a
not
fact.
from I cannot recall exactly with my own eyes if he was physically there. I would have to assume that he was, or we did meet on the Marianas working group and the donations, because it's within the window.
This travel is from January 31st to February 3rd. And you said you,
So what happened at that time was the reception, and I
yeah.
have February 1st is 2019 for the actual. I just have a note here for myself that says receipt of the 78 screens and 1,000 blankets. And forgive me, I don't know if that's when the container landed, but it would have been on or around the time when the governor inspected the product with the delegation from the legislature before we loaded it. So it's logical that in that 72-hour period, the 2, 3, 4-day period that he was on the ground and met with me or us, and then the product left and he received it in the CNMI. So
This is travel on his way to Pohnpei.
yes, ma'am. But
Okay.
you're asking me if he landed on Guam to meet with me.
Yes,
That sounds very probable. Yes.
probable, but you cannot ascertain that.
Not yet. No, I cannot recall from memory if he was at one or more of these 3 meetings between then and February 2nd.
I'm just talking specific to TA 347794, where Governor claimed to have left Saipan on January 31st, 2019, and returned to Saipan on February 3rd, 2019. You cannot ascertain whether you actually physically
Yeah,
met
there
with
was a lot
Governor.
going on. I do have a note here that I hosted seat of my delegation on January 31st. So when I go back on my records, I'm pretty
31st.
certain that if he had flown in that morning and went to my house that night, that would have been the conversation before we shipped out the product. I mean,
Oh.
the relief goods.
Short recess. Wanted to get further clarification, I guess, from you, Mr. Castro. So it is your testimony today that you do agree that you met with Governor Torres on this trip that he took between January 31st and February 3rd, 2019. And you said he may have possibly, it is logical to have met with him to inspect the donations. Is that correct? You testified earlier to that.
Yes, ma'am. And as I was going through my written notes from the prior questions, as I stated with Representative Sablan, I'm thinking between January 31st, which is consistent. That's
Yes.
the good thing. It's consistent. January 31st and February 2nd. I would submit that if he landed on the 31st and the event was the 31st, and I'm mistaken, it's not the second. You see, we're talking about 1 2 day 3 window
We
here.
understand you testified earlier. It may have been,
Yeah.
in
So
fact, between January 28th. to
correct. So
February
let's assume
22nd.
I'm going to submit. If I'm assume that the appreciation gathering was the night of the 31st, the day of
Okay.
his trip. I've gone on the record. I will go on the record to attest that the governor, with my own eyes, was there because I heard him deliver the address. I just don't recall from the previous question with my own eyes if he brought the
So you
bottle of
actually
Scotch.
spoke at this appreciation
Yes,
party?
at the appreciation event, he actually addressed the crowd, and that's in my testimony.
Okay.
And that's why I was trying to clarify that although it was a non-senatorial function, it is my position and submission to this body that he was representing the Commonwealth as the governor in his official capacity. And when he verbally addressed the entire party there, like 30 some people. Yes, ma'am.
So help me understand. So would this be the same date or day of the donations from the nonprofit, or would it be a different date or
So it's the same window, yeah. So we're
same
talking,
window?
yeah,
Okay.
and so I again, I have to figure out the dates. Maybe the speaker might be able to help me, but please don't put him on the spot. The real question I need to reconcile is: did he get off the plane and we went to the hotel to look at the product, and then the appreciation, and then the loading, and then the transshipment? That's the only thing I need to reconcile. What is not up for discussion that I'm not clear on is: did we give stuff, and did the governor appear?
Mhm.
Irrefutably, he was there, and irrefutably, we made an extensive donation.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you recall? So do you recall where or when you would have met with him in this time frame, the January 31st? You just mentioned it would have been at the party or at.
Oh gosh, all three. So
Okay.
thank you for asking that. That helps me. I mean, I was having a hard time juggling if I saw him 2 or 3 times for 2 or 3 different parties. But if let's assume for a moment, for purposes of discussion, that in the 72-hour period, assuming it's the same day, right? They're subsequent or
Mhm.
yes, I met with him at the site. He was there in the flesh. I saw with my own eyes. And yes, congresspersons
Do you
were
recall
there.
if that was daytime or nighttime?
Good question. It was indoors. That I know. The reception was in the evening.
Okay.
That I know.
Okay.
So it's possible he came in after. I don't know what the flight schedule was. I mean, that probably, if I referred,
Sure.
if you take a recess, if it's worth your time, which I don't think it's a good investment of our time. He probably landed and we went to the site with the delegation to look at the donations. And then subsequent that went to the appreciation party.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. That's to the best, as I piece this together, not having been prepared to provide a more succinct testimony. That's to the best of my recollection, ma'am.
Do you know if he stayed all night at the party?
Could you define what all night is?
Well, it must have been a really good party if you don't recall a lot of the details.
Yes, ma'am. I wish
With
you were
that
there,
bottle
Chair.
of scotch on the table.
There were a lot more than scotch.
Yeah,
There was
I would
beer, there
imagine.
was sodas, and there was
So it was a good party then.
Kelagwin, Unganay. And depending on your definition of late, my partner and
typical.
let me tell you what my definition, you tell me that's early or late. My partner, who I share a household with, 10 o'clock is late. Kumusta no magtuno alas 10, di po pwede atrasaldo. So
Okay.
10 o'clock is late. Do I recall him being there past 10? I can't.
Okay.
To the best of my ability, I don't know.
Okay.
Dispense that.
Fair enough. And do you recall what, other than the monitors and the pillows, and do you recall what else was donated
Yeah.
for households or for
Sure,
PSS?
absolutely.
What was the specific donation to
Did you say
PSS?
PSS?
Yes.
I don't recall donations to PSS,
Okay.
ma'am. That would be on
Okay.
the receiving end. What I believe to have happened was the monitors were donated to CHCC.
Okay.
That's that's the jurisdiction of this government to determine the distribution schedule. I had no interest there. Yes, I can recall what was in each shipment. And yes, I would further submit that upon entry of any product, there's usually a bill of lading.
Mhm.
Lading. There's probably the better term for that, and it can articulate, ma'am, as a matter of transshipment, as a matter of public law.
Like a
probably-
packing list.
That's exactly right. So, in the absence of a succinct testimony this afternoon, for which I beg for you to excuse me, in not recalling exactly the quantity or the product, that should be made a matter of public record there. I know because when I packed the stuff, when I literally helped them, the shipper had to produce that. And so, yes, is there a particular item you want to ask me about?
No, just
Oh,
in general.
Oh,
These
you're
are
asking me
just,
if I remember what was
yeah.
on the ships? Of course, yes.
Okay. That is all I have for today. Does anybody else have any questions? Representative Sablan, do you have any further clarifying questions? Okay. At this time, we will dismiss you, Mr. Castro, and we thank you for coming. And we thank you also for coming here without an attorney. Um, if and we would appreciate receiving those documents from you, the agendas and everything that Representative Sablan asked for. And you are now free from the meeting.
If I may follow up, to whom shall I submit any type of materials from the working group of the past? Do I submit it to council? Do I look for the sergeant at arms, ma'am? Just a matter of proper protocol.
It should be directed to me as the chair, and then because we have COVID protocols here, I think you would have to leave it with the sergeant at arms.
And if I may, I want to thank you, Chair, representatives of the House. As a former lawmaker, I expected nothing less of the decorum, and I thank you for honoring the mutual respect, for giving me the opportunity to further clarify things that I cannot recall. Thank you. I appreciate that. And God bless you. And may you have a safe weekend.
Cesar Mossip. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We have just dismissed former Senator William Castro from the hearing today. And we thank him for coming in without an attorney. It went very smoothly. And at this time, can I get a motion to adjourn this meeting? A motion has been made to adjourn this meeting, and it has been seconded. Are there any discussions on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. It is now 12:33 p.m. This meeting is hereby adjourned. You can do the